Hello, everyone. Welcome to eLearnChat, where it is all about learning. And I am joined today by someone who is all about learning and more. Her name is Dr. Susan Nash. Hi, Susan. How are you?
Fine. It's raining today.
It's raining?
Yes. Spring showers.
Too bad it's not like in War of the Worlds, the rain comes, or was it Andromeda Strain, rain comes and wipes out everything and life goes back to normal. But we don't do that. It doesn't wipe politicians out. Anyway, here we are. It is April 15th. Used to be tax day. That's now next month. So anyway, let's have a good show. Joining us also will be Harold Muliati, who's the video producer, but he's also co-hosting today. So we're all co-hosting. And Susan's got a great topic. 6 e-learning strategies for Zoom. Zoom, not Zumba. Zoom. Here we go. This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation. Visit us at www.relatecasts.net. Thanks. And we are back, and there's Harold.
Here I am, yes.
So,
Hello,
Susan, you've got a great topic today. Zoom. Zoom is everyone's choice right now for doing hybrid and blended and conference calls and everything else, and e-learning. They use it for e-learning. They use it for meetings and conferences, everything.
I don't want to like, okay, so when I say Zoom, I mean the generic, I'm using it now as a generic term to mean web conferencing, because it can be Teams, everything.
Yep. And what you're talking about really will work on any one of those, whether it's Webex, Teams, GoToMeeting, Zoom.
Ring Central, yeah.
Brand Central. Yep. So it's an interesting topic. I know you have really gotten into Zoom a lot because of your work and some of the things you do. You've held tons of webinars, and you do a really good job at them too, by the way.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work. Now, you knew how to do this before, but you work with an association with a lot of members, and it took a lot of work to get totally up on Zoom.
Well, it did, and so just to kind of give some background. So once everything went into Zoom, then we found that the kinds of things that we did for e-learning, for kind of courses, we were doing them either asynchronously or face-to-face, and then with some like learning objects. But then suddenly, what used to be face-to-face turned to Zoom. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that people did is that they just said, okay, well, we'll just teach the whole class all day, an all-day workshop. We'll just do it all on Zoom. Mm-hmm. And so after we looked at the body count, after a couple of those, said that wasn't such a great idea.
No, it's too much. It's too long. It's interesting.
I still have to do some things like that. Like I have to teach a weekend course, and they still have scheduled it. And in order to get seat time, we have to go Friday for 4 hours, Saturday all day, and Sunday all day. And the only way to do that is to break it up in certain different ways and change the strategy.
Well, you have 6 strategies to talk about, so why don't we start with your first one?
Okay.
Should I read them off?
You want to read them out?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So your first strategy that you had here was, 1, engage each attendee through a combination of chat, polls, check your knowledge, questions.
Right. And the reason I was saying that is basically learning strategy and is engagement. So, like, the worst thing you can do in a Zoom course, whether it's 30 minutes or any kind of Zoom training, is to have people just turn off their cameras and just like let somebody lecture to them, and then it's like come back and say, okay, well, thank you for your service, bye. And the thing that you really have to do if you really expect to have any kind of engagement and people to remember is to use all your tools. So use the chat and ask people to send questions in chat, and then also to actually chat with each other and make sure they're double checking who they're actually sending that chat to.
Now, it's interesting you bring this up, because one of the key things about holding a webinar or anything else that's somewhat interactive and engaging, and this is a really hard part for people who aren't used to training live or online and even training in person, and that's timing.
Oh, yeah.
Not only watching your time, but how you time things to make things occur at good points, and to make sure that the people haven't gone into a catatonic state, that you're still in control of the class, if you will, because it's hard to really see what everybody's doing. And they're adults, so they can do whatever they want, but they're not going to benefit from it if things get out of hand or out of control, or they just tune out. So timing is so important to doing this kind of work. And I know you've worked on that with people about how to make sure it's not too long, not too short, and how to keep things moving, like you said, with all of these interactive and engaging activities. And the other thing is, and there's one thing that a lot of people think when they're online, they can't stop talking at you. Sometimes it's good to have a moment or two or three of silence. Let people digest what they've just heard.
Well, I would say especially because if people have questions or comments, it's going to take longer when you're online, not only because you've got network delay, but sometimes, because the camera makes people a little nervous and stuff, it might take a little longer for people to actually formulate their questions and that sort of thing.
Well, and you have to let people know that they're on mute.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Well, the other thing, one of the things too, like people think it's enough just to have breaks, but it really isn't. I mean, you've got to actually ask people to specific questions, and then encourage people to speak, and then ask them to bring things. So it's always a good idea to say, have at least something to share with your screen, like ask people to put together a little PowerPoint or just one slide.
Yeah.
And so that so just having people engage, but the basic tools in Zoom are pretty primitive. You can use in the meetings all the little draw tools and things. The downside with that is if you're doing that to, like, say, a Google Documents, there's so much latency. It's so slow.
Yeah.
Have you ever used Adobe Connect?
I have. And, I used it again after it had been a long time. And it made me aware of how things have changed because it was kind of glitchy.
Yeah.
Even though it has so many features.
I used to use the old Flash version of it, and it was okay, except for every so often it would just disappear on you. But I haven't tried the new version, but I did like their approach to it, the way they have pods. They have a lot of interactivity built into the tool. So from a conceptual point of view, I thought it was one of the best out there. It works okay, but there's issues. Again, I haven't looked at the newer versions. My knowledge is right now about 4 or 5 years old, and it was good, but it did have some glitches with Flash. Now I don't know. So it's been redone, I think.
Well, Adobe Connect this is early days. I remember I was in a workshop where we were doing everything. This is when we thought, we'll just do everything in Second Life. This is before Second Life kind of died. But anyway, we were using Adobe Connect within that. And that was before they had, like, all these controls were like safeguards. And the administrator could actually open up your camera, every person's camera.
Yeah.
And that happened to me. That was like, I'm on camera. Thank goodness I'm, like, clothed.
Yeah, that's funny. But it's great because you turn on the camera and go, Joe, what you doing over there? Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, the good old days. Anyway, so should we move on to point 2?
Yeah, and we actually covered point 2 a little bit, but point 2 was personalize the experience, turn on cameras, and encourage spoken word responses rather than just chat.
Well, and one thing I found, we're worried about security issues, and we have had things like Zoom bombing. In fact, I was in a
Wait, what's a Zoom bomb?
Okay, a Zoom bomb is where somebody takes over control of somebody's camera, or they bomb into a meeting, and then they put up things that are objectionable. And so I was in one where it was like a high school sort of pitch fest, and they were talking about their ideas. It was actually in California, and they were talking about their ideas for social consciousness stuff and things that they could do. So one idea was to have people to have group counseling online. Well, right when this guy was talking about how depression and anxiety and intervention, somebody zoomed in, and you could tell it was somebody he knew, because if it's somebody who had all these like weird little My Little Pony things all over the place. And then he was going, and somebody he knew, must have it was a prank, because he goes, Marcus, why did you do that? But I mean, so consequently, people try to use the webinar setting, and the webinar setting, you've gone to this, right? You just see the person. You can't tell who's in the room with you.
Yeah,
right.
You just look, on the outside looking in, just like your hands pressed against the glass. Let me in. Nobody sees me, hears me. And I tried that because I didn't want any Zoom bombing. But I noticed that people started leaving after about, 30 minutes. The attendance got lower and lower. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to take a chance, and we'll do the meetings format, where everybody can see each other. And I mean, it's a little scary, because people will turn on you can turn everybody off, their microphones off, but they can turn themselves back on. Yeah.
And I think the problem is when they don't have any of that, when it's just the chat window, then immediately what do? They're going to their phone and they're just doing something else. I don't have my phone with me, but just imagine my hand is my phone.
And there's also a problem when people turn on their mics and don't even know they're on, and they're talking. This happens all the time. And, there's a lot of things. I mean, it's great technology. Is it for everything? No. Is it the best? I don't think so, but it can help when you have no other choice. But it's not the most ideal. You got a lot of people saying that's the way we should do it from now on. That's bad reasoning. It shouldn't be the way we do it from now on. It's basically they say, well, let's stay closed forever. Oh, good. That's just wonderful. But no, I mean, it's a great format for certain things, but to do it for everything, I don't know. But you're right. Now, you've worked with Teams. You've worked with Microsoft Teams, I think, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I like that as a format. It works pretty well.
Yeah.
There are some glitches every so often, or sometimes the person talking may not be the person on screen. Then all of a sudden they show up on screen. So sometimes there's a little bit of glitches, only because there's so many people using Teams now. But it works pretty well. I thought it was not too bad, fairly engaging, and it does pretty good screen sharing and other things. What did you think of it?
Well, frankly, we'll say Teams in a generic sense. Before Teams, people were using Google platforms, but that got kind of disallowed in most corporate settings because of security issues. Mm-hmm. And so Teams became the security choice. But what I would like to look at them as collaboration platforms. Yeah. And so the nice thing about Teams, and you can use Google, is that you can actually, I think it's actually better than a learning management system, except you don't, and actually even like if you're going to use Google, it has the built-in classroom. But at any rate, because you can go and you can get in there, you like use chat, but then also you can exchange files, you can message people outside, if they have a team still on. It's intrusive like that. but then you can, but you can actually have people see each other working on stuff together. And you learn things like even just a simple little data set, like, hey, let's learn how to set up the barista stuff at Moosehead Coffee. And let's do our training routine. Well, then you just have the barista going, okay, well, here's our book, and this is what we do, and check, 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 and this is what it looks like. And everybody gets to see it, and they can go reach it, get the file later.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and I think that kind of goes actually into your next point that you have on here, where you were talking about implementing program activities that learners can do with the instructor, hands-on activities with the computer.
Was that point 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so essentially a lot of people are kinesthetic learners.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's nothing more deadly than just sitting and watching Zoom, because
Exactly,
they aren't interacting and they're not typing or doing something. So if you have people like follow along on their computer, and if they're using their phone or something for it, it won't work quite as well. But depending on what you're learning, if you're learning for example, programming in Python, and you need to like learn how to get the Jupyter notebook and the environment, people show that they can show, well, here we go to this GitHub, we go to this repository, we do this, and follow along.
Yeah.
And if you just are showing it in a YouTube video, it's just not going to stick.
No, I mean, teaching something like programming or any kind of skill where you're not doing it is almost useless. It's people are just, they faded. They've gone into a comatose state, maybe not coming out of it anytime soon. Well, it's just not the right platform for that.
And I just feel like it's a better more efficient use of the students' time if they're doing the stuff at the same, rather than watching the stuff and then later they have to do it and go from their notes that may or may not be right. They're doing it right there, and if they get something wrong, they can ask you right then and there.
Well, I'll give you an example. I teach martial arts. I've been doing it for a long time. And last year I was invited to a World Tai Chi Day teaching session, which we usually do in person, but this one was done on Zoom. I abhorred it. One, you can't teach people remotely like that because you can't feel them. You can't touch them. You can't see where they're stiff, where they're out of alignment, where they're really not moving well. So you're getting, at best, partial learning. And it's just like, this makes no sense. So, it's been taken to such an extreme. Oh, let's close all the gyms. Right. And so you can't get good training on that. You want to learn yoga? You can't well. I mean, you can copy to a point, but the fine points will be missed. Tai Chi, the same way. Any kind of martial art, the same way. Anything physical, you really kind of need to be there to truly learn it well. It's just not the same.
Yeah, I agree. You can follow along, but there's nothing like being, for example, if you're doing, say, yoga or something, you kind of need to have the place needs to have a mirror, a wall of mirrors.
Right. Well, even for example, you're a geologist and you're teaching people about rock formations or the kinds of rocks. So this is what an igneous rock feels like, and this is what granite feels like. And you're touching it in a classroom, you're feeling, you go, okay, that's interesting. Or you've got cross-section. It's not the same as looking at it when you can actually feel it, touch it, even smell it sometimes. What a difference that makes when now your senses are totally involved versus listening, watching, and there's no sense of reality.
And you can't tell how slippery the rocks might be. But my one big vacation during this lockdown, I went to Quartz Mountain and decided, hey, I'm going to go climb up this little hiking path near all this exfoliated granite. And it was super slippery. And I still have a scar from it.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Huh.
A small one.
Yeah. But still, it had something here to be aware of.
Well, and that, speaking of virtual field trips and all that, obviously everybody's wanted to try to do virtual field trips. And, with all kinds of, Google Earth, it has some things out there, and there are lots and lots of virtual places. You can go to virtual tours of the Grand Canyon and different places. and that's good. But like you said, it's kind of almost like a reminder.
It's not the same.
No.
No, we're missing out on many senses, and for no real reason. But in fact, like I said, if you're going to do stuff like that, then go learn some science, because you really don't catch viruses out in the wide open in the heat. It just doesn't happen.
That's one of the safest things you can do. Is just hiking out in the open air.
Nothing will happen.
Not around anybody.
You may catch a snake, but that's a whole other problem. And you don't close down society for that. But anyway, those are just foolish things that people with no knowledge about science whatsoever are saying. Well, it's the science. Yeah, but what planet science? It's not ours. It's just dumb things, because you're right. If you go hiking and you go to a virtual trail and you go, that was fun, I want to try it myself now. It's very different when you try it yourself and you've never done it before. You're not ready for it. And yeah, I have a friend who did Mount Kilimanjaro about 4 years ago, I think. And they trained for months and months. And she said the training was nothing like what the mountain was. She goes, nothing like it. She said on the first day she was screaming, "Can I go home now?" No. Her husband said, "No." Can they medevac me out? No. So, it's not the same. Virtual will never replace. These aren't holodecks where it's almost a real experience. This is on Zoom or whatever other tool, and it's very two-dimensional.
That said, I am all for simulations and gamification of training, especially for things where it's high stakes. So if it's like safety and things, I think it's great.
Yeah. Okay, what's point 4?
So point 4 was for students to share their screens, whether it's presentations or results of an activity, like the activities we were talking about before.
In your working with all of these tools, Susan, how reticent were people to share what they did?
It takes a while. First of all, there's the anxiety about the technology itself. But then I think you have to really figure out, you don't have to, sometimes you can state it, but to think about your learning goals. So for example, if people are coming up with, say, a training, a plan to do this or that, for example, a dog show or pet adoption day, and they're talking about, well, okay, so they create a PowerPoint and then they make it can be fun. And so if they want to show off, show their creativity and share their idea, then it's a lot more fun. If it's more of a gotcha moment, it's not conducive.
Number 5.
And number 5, it was teaming up for scenarios. And Susan had a little example here. Imagine you've been tasked with promoting an Airbnb on a beach near shark-infested waters.
Did it go on?
Yeah.
Huh?
Did that one go on?
What do you mean go on?
Oh, the scenario.
Oh, no, I mean that was the example she gave in her.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, yes. Okay, so imagine, so like that's to get you started. So imagine you've been tasked with that, like promoting an Airbnb in shark-infested water. So your team has to come up with the promotional materials and and then a way to show how you can enjoy the beach without getting in over your ankles so even the tiniest shark won't catch you.
Yeah.
But I mean, but kind of coming up with some kind of group task where they can relate it to some kind of reality, make it a little bit silly, but then thinking about, obviously there's going to be a serious analog, but you don't want to make it boring.
You can just imagine the promos. If you think you can lose your life, don't worry about it. You'll probably lose your leg first.
Count the dorsal fins. Count the dorsals at breakfast.
Yeah. Don't be afraid. Most sharks are friendly. Yeah. Or just tell people, most sharks are friendly. You won't have any fear here. Maybe.
You stay at our Airbnb you'll get a discount on a first aid course for amputated limbs.
That's right.
Yeah, I think I remember having dinner one time in a restaurant in Waco, Texas, and it was like on the traffic circle and said, "Watch the traffic circle. Grab a window next to the traffic circle and watch the excitement."
Well, that's like, yeah, I've driven in Boston a lot with the rotundas. Oh my gosh, it's like the 7 exits, and which one do I get off at? Beep! Oh, keep going. You finally find it. It's oh my gosh, and people are going as fast as they can in those things, and you're trying to figure, where do I get off? Yeah, that's fun.
Well, so with the teaming up, how have you typically done that with having people team up for scenarios and learning activities?
Well, it depends on what kind of group you have. For example, if you have a group of engineers and geologists, you want to mix them up so that you balance a geologist with an engineer with, say, a financial person. Now, if it's a course where it's like a weekend course where people are kind of different, you want to try to think, put people together. They can self-select, but you can put people together who have different backgrounds.
Are you finding that most of the tools now have breakout sessions?
Yeah, you can have breakout sessions. And the thing is, too, I mean, it's really easy to have an unproductive breakout session. So you've got to give people small chunk tasks, not a huge.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we lost that last. You got cut off on that last part. You said keep it in small tasks, small chunks.
Now, small chunks that people can do, but not too small, because you don't want them just to sit in the breakout room and just chit-chatting.
Right.
Yep, and I think we have one final point.
Yeah, our final point was situated learning. Situate or position the learning so that's a hands-on experience with the course materials and involves achieving learning objectives. And Susan had written another small thing here for that where she said, imagine that you and your pirate buddies are going to try to ambush a Spanish galleon. Uh-huh. You have inadvertently navigated your pirate frigate into the Horse Latitudes. Peg Leg Pete looks at you and says, "Arr, the Horse Latitudes. What's that, Pony Island?" You have to explain it to him and also calm his nerves while you divulge that you could be there a while. A long while. And that ghost ship with St Elmo's fire you saw the other night had a literal skeleton crew for a reason.
I like pirates and and pirate problems.
That's a good
for
pirate
example,
problem. Yeah. Maybe.
But if you actually situate yourself and say, okay, how am I going to navigate out of the Horse Latitudes, not the harsh latitudes, as then you think, okay, I have a problem. I really need to figure this out. And you think about, what are the tools I'm going to have as a pirate? What did I think to bring with me?
Yeah.
And
you've got a horse ship behind you with ghosts.
Yes, we have the St Elmo's fire, too.
That's a fun scenario.
I love those types of scenarios. My problem is I get into too much detail usually.
Well, and the thing I'm wondering is, like, what do you find more successful, like coming up with something that's like really inventive and kind of off the wall a bit, or something that's based on, like, if you had some previous real world scenario that say it was something that happened to the company or something that you're kind of adapting for a training scenario, or do you think?
Well, I've tried this. So, like right now, I have students that some of my most successful ones have been like coronavirus superpowers. So imagine you had superpowers and you could eliminate the coronavirus. And so I have and students come up with these and I put different things that they have to address. Are the best superpowers and the best graphics. It's just amazing. And then sometimes they even turn like their German Shepherd into a super dog, and the dog he's a little cave. He flies around sniffing.
And by the way, you know if you have a dog, dogs get corona shots every year.
That's true.
People forget that. They go, isn't that the corona like beer? No, it's a coronavirus, but it's a different one. It's not technically a SARS virus, but it's along the same lines. And kennel cough and all that other fun stuff. Oh, by the way, speaking of dogs, your website is the eLearning Corgi.
Yes.
.com. eLearning Corgi. And for those who don't know, Susan is the assistant to the eLearning Corgi, the queen of eLearning. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So the other excellent, one of my favorite ones was that had really over the top.
You've got
over the top in responding. Was imagine that you had to prepare for zombie apocalypse.
Right.
And
that means a move to California. Yeah.
So would your money be good? So they really had to prepare. Like, okay, what do you use for bartering? How do you, it's super interesting.
How do you barter with a zombie?
There's some brains over there. Fresh brains in the other room.
Good. Makes for a fun class, especially the imitation part, right?
Well, so anyway, we had I really think that it's important. I mean, they have incorporate the real concepts, but make it interesting. I mean, but then like another thing I'm trying to put together, I found some people that have an actual geothermal lease in Utah, and I'm using Zrathus, which is a collaboration platform where we did put some challenges. So we're going to ask people to follow up from like short course to go in and actually evaluate the value of that lease.
Interesting.
So it's like a marketable skill once they figure out how to do it.
It's kind of fun. So what do you see this next year coming up as far as learning goes? You see continuation of the same from 2020, or do you think we're going to go back to more standard learning, or is it going to be a combination thereof?
Well, I think that the most robust Zoom classes will be ones that actually do have a counterpart in some kind of learning management system where they can go retrieve files and review the video, or if it's recorded, if not. But like have some reinforcement. I think that there are a lot of students that continue to say that they just don't like 100% online.
Right.
But they also don't show up for class when we do have class. So I think that hybrid is really going to be the way of the future, which is probably the most expensive option.
The thing I'm wondering is, do you think there are going to be some important lessons that people learn from training and teaching online through Zoom and other platforms that they'll be able to come back and apply when they're actually doing the in-person training and education again?
Oh, yeah. First of all, I think what's shown is that a lot of in-class room stuff is pretty sloppy, and that people don't really plan. And when I say that it's the most expensive, I mean, the least expensive, I guess, would be just, in theory, to just have a place, the classroom that's already paid for, and you just show up. And then or just have a very inexpensive learning management system. But when you have both, it gets a little expensive, unless you already have sunk costs.
Right.
Well, there you go. No questions in the chat room today.
None, actually.
No, they left for another meeting, I guess. But anyway, thank you for being there. Thank you, Susan, for sharing that. And if you're watching in the chat room, wake up. And if you're not, nobody ever I always wonder why don't people communicate more? It'd be fun, but they don't. They watch, or they lurk. But if you have any questions for Susan afterwards, please leave them in the comments. We're going to actually reload the video on LinkedIn. So when we reload it, you can leave questions below and someone will answer you. Susan
And we'll
has a lot
share
of
the
experience seeing
scenarios,
this too. Hmm?
Yeah. We can share the scenarios.
Oh, they were great. Yeah. That pirate ship in the distance coming towards us.
With the skeleton crew.
With the skeleton crew.
Yeah.
I like training zombies in California. Yeah. These are good topics. Anyway, well, have a good one, everyone. We will see you next week on eLearnChat. Next week, actually, we have with us, we have Lectora coming on next week.
Yeah, we have
Chris Willis.
Chris Willis from
She's the
Lectora.
product manager for Lectora, part of eLearning Brothers. And that should be a fun show. I don't know if I've met her before, but I hear she's fun, a lot of fun. So we will see you next week on eLearnChat. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks. Thanks,
Bye,
Susan.
everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.